Hello everybody, K-Whip here, and welcome to another Destiny 2 video. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the Menagerie and the weapons it gives out, and whether they are worth the grind or not. And for most of this video, I'm not going to be talking about just acquiring a weapon, but more so trying to get a god roll or a very good roll on a weapon, and doing the Menagerie multiple times to try to get that roll. And the usefulness of doing this and whether it's worth it or not is going to vary from person to person and what their situation is, but I'll analyze some of those situations and kind of say what my general feeling is for whether grinding for god rolls of these weapons are worth it or not. But for the most part, I would say that it is not worth the grind. And this is because even though the Menagerie weapons are pretty solid and a lot of them can be pretty good, none of them are really top tier except for the Beloved, and then the Ostringer can be on PC. But I'm a console player and I'm going to give you the point of view mostly of console from this video. So there's really only one top tier weapon of the 7, and then the rest are just pretty good. And a lot of the weapons, even with their best possible roll, are still not going to be one of the best guns in the game, and will have trouble competing against some of the top tier weapons of the game. And when I say that, I'm just talking about the new Menagerie weapons, not including guns like the Dustrock Blues or the Oriental, which you can also get through the Menagerie, that can possibly be some of the best guns in the game. So just keep in mind throughout this video, I'm really covering the new Menagerie weapons, not old weapons that you can also get through the Menagerie. Now let's go through each weapon one by one and kind of analyze them. First off, you have the Callus Mini Tool, 900 RPM submachine gun. It's okay, gonna be a decent pairing with Mida, but there's nothing too special about this gun. And then there's Recluse in the game right now, which is another 900 RPM submachine gun with far more potential in the same slot, so you're not getting anything that's gonna be game breaking or game impacting even really with the Mini Tool. So is it worth it to get one of these weapons? Yeah, sure, why not? Something to try out and mix up your playstyle from time to time with. But it's not going to be something that's all that important, and is not going to be a crucial weapon for you. Then in kind of the same boat is the Drang, which is also a year 1 weapon brought into year 2. That also pairs with an exotic in the Sturm. Now it's nice to get an updated version of the Drang, so you can have an updated pairing to the Sturm, which is pretty cool. But you're not going to get anything crazy on this Drang, and it's not going to be anything incredible. But it will be a solid sidearm and a good change of pace if you want to go with it. So is it worth it to try to get a god roll Drang? Probably not, unless you're a huge fan of the Sturm, which I happen to be, so I'm going to at least try to get a pretty good PvP roll on one. However, the original Drang with Rampage is pretty solid in its own right. Next up, we have the Fixed Odds Machine Gun, which is a slow rate of fire machine gun. And I don't know, I wasn't liking this all that much in PvP compared to other machine guns. And in PvE, I think that the differences between machine guns are pretty negligible. I could be wrong about that. But this is another weapon that I don't think it's worth really going for a god roll on, when you could have just done the same thing with Hammerhead during the Season of the Forge. And that brings up something that I wanted to talk about in this video, is that if you've already gone for god rolls, or if you've already tried to get really good weapons in the past, or have just played enough where you have, the Menagerie weapons aren't going to be too impactful for you. And that's kind of what the past seasons were about, was grinding out to try to get god roll weapons. And they provided a lot of weapons that are better than the ones that the Menagerie is offering. So if you played in the past quite a bit, then the Menagerie is likely not going to reward you with anything that is better than what you already have. So even though they've added a lot of good weapons, there's nothing that's great or outstanding. So if you've already played the game for a long time, then you really aren't getting much with this season outside of like Beloved. Now we might as well talk about Beloved. I did a review specifically on this sniper, and I think it's one of the best snipers in the game. I personally think it has the best scope in the game. It's also got very high aim assistance for its archetype, and it has the capability of getting insane rolls such as Snapshot and Quick Draw on the same roll, which makes it, I believe, the only sniper in the game that can get that combo. And so the Beloved is special, it's absolutely spectacular. Definitely among the top snipers in the game. I'd say Twilight Oath and Persuader give it a run for its money. Maybe throw Bite of the Fox in there too, but it's definitely up there. So Beloved, worth going for a god roll? I'd say yes. All the other ones that we've mentioned before, probably not. All the ones I'm going to mention next, probably not. So now to get into what we have left, we have the Ostringer, which is the hand cannon, and this is in the 140 RPM archetype, which is probably the worst archetype for hand cannons in the game right now. It's either that or the slowest rate of fire archetype, depending on how skilled you are with controlling recoil. but both archetypes tend to have quite a bit of recoil, which makes them pretty weak. At least on console. Like I said, on PC it's a different thing, and this weapon can be top tier on PC, but on console it's not. But the Austringer is really good for 140 RPM archetype hand cannon, probably the best of its type except for maybe the Ace of Spades. But it's still going to be outshined by other hand cannons like the Last Word, the Service Revolver, and Luna's Howl and Not Forgotten. So Austringer may be good, but it's not going to compete with the top tier hand cannons of the game. Thus, it's not really worth grinding out Menagerie many times trying to get a god roll, unless you have a lot of time on your hands and you can kind of throw it around doing whatever. Then there's the Epicurean, which is the fusion rifle, and this is kind of in the same archetype as the main ingredient, doing 39 damage per bolt. And this archetype is okay right now, better than something like a Prolium, but nowhere near as good as like an Arental or Wizen Rebuke, which are the higher impact options for fusion rifles. So it's kind of in between the mid to upper tier of a fusion rifle, but it definitely isn't as consistent as the top tier fusions like Arental and Wizen Rebuke. And so if you have a good roll on one of those, then it's really not worth going after a really good Epicurean. But again, it's something fun to try out and a good change of pace, but not something you need to run the Menagerie 20 times to try to get an amazing roll on it. And then finally there's the Imperial Decree, which is the shotgun, and this is in the slowest rate of fire, highest impact archetype for shotguns, which is probably the second or maybe third best archetype in the game depending on your stance on full autos. The best archetype is the Dustrock Blues archetype, which has the most range, and it still has a faster fire rate than the highest impact shotgun, so it has both those advantages where it can shoot faster for follow-up shots and it has more range, which helps its consistency and also the distances you're going to be able to kill at. So the Imperial Decree, while it can be a very strong shotgun, it's not going to live up to like a Dustrock Blues or a Retold Tale, in my opinion, so it's really not worth going for a god roll for that either, because it's still not going to be the best shotgun in the game, even if you get a perfect roll on it. And what you could be doing is just doing the Menagerie and trying to get Dustrock Blues, because that's something that can be the best shotgun in the game. So that's how I feel about each of the Menagerie weapons. Just about all of them are good with the right roll, but very few of them are actually great or the best. So I feel like it isn't worth your time trying to do something over and over and over and over and over again for something that isn't going to be the best. But if you don't have god rolls of things like the Dustrock Blues, or if you don't have a Luna's Howl or Service Revolver, and you're missing out on some of those really top tier weapons and are maybe a bit newer to the game, then the Menagerie can be a great source of good weapons. However, in my opinion, it's not giving you the best stuff. With all this being said, I think the Menagerie is a good activity. It's very nice having something that's 6-man but match made. The encounters are pretty cool. The aesthetic of the Menagerie is really awesome, and I think Bungie did a good job on it overall. But I just would have liked to seen a few more weapons that could have been top tier if you did really grind out to get the best roll possible. But anyway, those are my thoughts. I hope this video helped out. Thank you for watching, and see you later. What? Yeah, that made sense.